Hi guys, how are you all? This is FJ What If? Today we are going to discuss about what if Naruto was Madara's student part 22. Before start the episode, please like and subscribe my channel. Chapter 22. Colors of the Wind. She watched with bated anticipation as his chest rose and fell softly, humming like the wings of a butterfly. This was all her fault, she was to blame for all this. Her actions had caused the man lying before her to be pushed to utter exhaustion. His state was a reminder of her extreme confidence, well she would call it arrogance on her part. She had failed to inform him of her plan, and now he appeared to be on the verge of death. She believed she could handle both Danzo and Obito, but the Uchiha had proved to be far stronger than anyone expected. The result of his power was seen through Naruto's wounded form. The tips of his hair was singed and blackened, he had a ghastly gash over his left eye, and a horrendous burn on his face that even covered his right eye. Thankfully both of his eyes were unharmed and he currently had bandages wrapped around his head, shielding his eyes from view. He had a large wound on his stomach, that if Obito had put more power in the swing Naruto may have been missing his intestines. She then looked over to the gnarled stump on his right shoulder, an ugly reminder of how far he would go for her. Just that thought sent something flowing through her, readily jumping into danger to protect her, to shield her from the ghosts of his past. It was almost like a feather dancing within her heart. She then ran her hand tenderly through his golden hair with burnt locks, smoothing her hand over his scalp. The man's body eased into her embrace, as if a great weight had been alleviated from his body. Subconsciously he had delved his head into her hand, trying to capture the enlightening touch and the sheer warmth it provided. She smiled as she watched him, a simple action could speak so many words. She wondered as to what would motivate him to confront challenges that most would run from, throwing himself knowingly into danger despite the risk of death, to lay down everything and anything in pursuit of her, condemning him to solitude and sorrow. What would motivate him to throw away everything he had worked for in order to save someone who could offer little to him? Why chase after her with such zealotry that one would think he was possessed? Why go so far if only to lose what he cherished? She knew the answer. Love. A force so powerful and unknown, so mysterious in its way to ensnare the heart and mind with varying degrees of accomplishment. Love is indeed so strong that all reason becomes blind to it, blind to the truth, blind to all things. How far one was willing to go for love is uncertain, for it was so elusive in its meaning that one could question it all their life, and they would still have no answer other than they knew it was real. Loss of love could make one desperate, perhaps desperate enough to bury the truth, to hide from its pain, and its reminder. Love was so powerful that even the strongest of us all could fall to their knees from its power. And she knew that he loved her. Perhaps he was not aware of it, perhaps he refused to acknowledge it, perhaps he was afraid of it, whatever the case may be. She knew he loved her, and she couldn't deny that she had fallen for him. She loved him also. As it was said, love is so mysterious that it could take years for it to appear. Sometimes it is an instantaneous thing, or maybe a single word spoken between them could light up the spark within them. But in their case, small interactions, trust and compassion had led them to this. Don't go. If you disappear from my life, all the color in this world shall be painted gray. And that will be too unbearable to live with. So please don't leave me. Conan, said Naruto subconsciously as the bandages around his eyes developed wet, moist spots where a few tears trailed down his cheeks. Conan smiled warmly and bent down and kissed the salty tears away. Her little actions were having an effect, as Naruto eased up and released a soft breath of ease, while Conan kissed his tears. Once her ministrations were no longer necessary, she stared at his sleeping face with tender eyes. She was hoping the dream he was having was one that could ease all his suffering. She couldn't hold back the smile to her features, and slowly lowered her lips to his own where she captured them in a chaste, loving kiss, just content to savor the moment. She could have sworn, however, that he kissed her back. Danzo was simmering in his office at Konoha. The dark room was lit up by a single flickering candle, as his soul eye watched the dancing flame, as if it had a life of its own. The operation in the land of spring was a failure. All the sacrifices were unjustified as an unknown factor had made it clear. That woman. The one he had seen all those years ago, an original member of the Akatsuki. Conan. She was to blame for this. She, in the last moment of defeat, spirited Naruto away to a safe location. Not only that, the blonde Uzumaki had reawakened the superb power that made him feared, above all else. All that power they had sealed away has been unleashed once again. Fuinjutsu was truly a dangerous art that only the Uzumaki were truly able to comprehend and pierce the mysteries that surrounded the art. Danzo narrowed his eye at the flame of the candle. It was just like Naruto Uzumaki, right there in front of him, mocking him. They had also failed to capture Haruko, but that was the least of their concerns. The blonde's new and old power was something to be feared, if not envied. So long as Naruto lived, he was a danger to everyone around him. His power was not something to be feared. No, what was to be truly feared was the Fuinjutsu now in his employ. If Danzo was to properly control or eliminate the blonde, wipe him from the face of the earth once more, he would have to go back to his origins within Root, when the famed Chikurufu was named, feared even within the Root itself. That blonde was no shinobi, no, he was far worse, he was a warlord. Danzo then clapped his hands where several Root commanders appeared before him, bowing their heads in respect to the elder of Konoha. Prepare to march the troops to Uzeshogakure. I believe it is time to retrieve what is rightfully mine, said Danzo with a scowl on his face. The idea of going to the decrepit ruin filled him with disgust. But what lied there was far worth than any life in this world. And it would be his. Tsunade was sitting in her office. Having been informed of the botched plan to kill Ryuyoke's, the wolf had proven himself more resourceful than anyone she knew. Although Danzo claimed they had been close to finishing him off, he had escaped at the last minute and was spirited away to safety. Tsunade rubbed her forehead in aggravation. Yoke's, he was always on her mind, always planning ahead, thinking strategies, dancing around her mind. It boggled and infuriated her to no end. She wished Drea was here to ease some of her nerves, provide her advice on a certain subject. She had a fair need to visit the hot springs and unwind herself in the hot steaming water, but something came to mind. A certain something that had been plaguing her for a while. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a rustic, battered and worn journal, one of the last mementos of the Sandaime Hokage. She traced her fingers across the brown dirty cover of the book, inspecting it. She opened up a page in the book, a certain one that promised her a wealth of knowledge on a certain individual. Naruto Uzumaki, when he was a Fuinjutsu genius, but still the same hyperactive child. She read the words carefully, her eyes grazing over each entry with caution at what she would discover. Flashback. His form was heavy, weighted as if bricks were laid upon his back. His feet were trailing behind him, creating scuff marks and tracks in the dirt. His face was muddy, bruised with a lost expression upon his features. Tears and rips were visible on his clothes, simple blue pants and a short-sleeved shirt with a flame emblem on it, also covered in grime and mud. He had cuts and bruises on his body that were bleeding and still infected, and to top it off he had a split lip. His golden hair was caked in dirt and had lost its usual vibrancy, almost as if the sun died. And tears were falling from his eyes, trailing down like a water droplet on glass. This was nothing more than his daily life. Scavenging off what people threw away. He regarded the things people took for granted to be the most selfish of sins, not knowing of the gift it is to be them. Only wanting what they had. They lived happy lives with their families while he had nothing, only the torn clothes on his back that seemed too small for him. He brought a hand to his moist eyes, and let out a shrieking scream that echoed across the village. His cries ear-splitting and pleading, demanding love that was denied to him. Why do I have to be punished? Questioned the boy of 4 years with a deceptively intelligent mind. Konoha looks out for their own. The shinobi fight without flinching to protect what was precious to them. That's a lie. And the old man knows it. The Sandaime claims to care about me. He claimed to be like a grandfather to me. But why did he abandon me? When I needed him most. Why does everybody have to randomly die? Why is everything I have gone? Desperately holding on to the hope that the next day will be better. Like the sky, growing brighter with the day. Losing everything for the sake of not losing anything. Trying hard to hold on to life. It's because I don't know what to do that I blindly cling to the day, trying to live. No matter what. It's already too unbearable. I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough. Spoke Naruto as more tears poured down his eyes. The thought of bearing so much pain, from just living. Said boy just continued walking through the village, the dark clouds promising rain, but never falling. No matter what kind of connection he made with people, it always ended up being the same. Leaving him alone. To suffer in solitude. The old man promised I won't be alone when he told me about my parents. He told me they would never leave me alone. But what good are cold corpses? They left me alone just like everyone else. Yelled Naruto again as he finally stopped walking and sat down on the ground in some alleyway, his legs being brought up to his chest. He just stared at the dirty, grimy ground, his thoughts a whirlwind. Why was he the one to suffer? Why couldn't everyone else feel the pain he felt? Whatever, it's not like he cared. He closed his eyes and thought, thinking about the family he never had and hoping for one he could cherish. Just someone he could hold hands with. Just then, the rain started pouring down on him, but it did little to hamper his mood. Looking to his left, he grabbed a stray newspaper and threw it over his head and resumed his brooding position. The rain never stopped, he just sat there, thinking about his wretched existence. He had so many questions, and so many people refused to answer them. But why? Was it the forefront of his mind? Just then, through the sound of battering rain and in the dark of the night, did he turn his head to view a shadow standing over him. Imposing and stoic, an unmoving face like stone. Naruto stared at the shadow with indifference, knowing exactly who it belonged to, yet not caring in the slightest. To him, he was just some hypocritical monkey, clawing at the reflection of the moon in a puddle. All he saw was what he wanted to see, nothing more, blind to the world around him even with all his wisdom. The Sandaime Hokage, the rain from his hat dripping from the edges and his formal robe becoming wet and soggy, his hands behind his back. Staring down at the young boy. "Let's go, Naruto. You'll catch a cold," spoke Hiruzen, offering his hand to the young child, who narrowed his eyes in contempt at the old man, who frowned a little at the glare. Was that glare full of mistrust, or simply pure hatred for him? Hiruzen lacked the wisdom to know, but he believed, adamantly, that Naruto was lost. Lost in the raging maelstrom of his mind and unable to find the right path. So he stood there, and he would remain standing there until Naruto took his hand. That was the moment when Naruto discovered his true calling. As a wolf has many teeth. Flashback end. Tsunade sighed when she read that simple excerpt. But that sigh was filled with pity for herself. Just from reading that small passage was she able to understand everything about Naruto Uzumaki. She had failed him. Simple as that. She was to blame just as everyone else was. Maybe if he had lived, he would have grown strong enough to defeat Ryuyokeis and become Hokage. No, she couldn't dwell on that. She flipped over to another passage within her mentor's journal. Flashback. It had been 5 years since the Sandaime Hokage found Naruto, dirtied and alone on the street. 5 long years, and the Hokage was sure that Naruto was able to turn his life around. He had found his cave of gold in the form of sealing, to which the boy proved to be a prodigy, a genius beyond anyone's years. His imaginative mind had proven to be his greatest weapon, constantly coming up and inventing new seals that aided others as well as himself. His greatest work being a seal that animated inanimate objects. The boy had found a puppet, one from Sunagakure, and placed a seal upon it, to which it moved around and talked as a human. The puppet quickly became Naruto's assistant, and the boy of 9 years had given it the name Ko. But unfortunately, despite his absolute genius in his inventions, old hatred still festered as he tried to sell his wares to stores, with each and every one rejecting him because of what he was. He could barely scrape by with the money he had, and even then he wasted it on ink and paper or any other items that sealing could be used with. Right now Hiruzen was walking to Naruto's apartment to check up on the young boy and introduce him to someone very important who could probably help improve the child's life. Possibly more than the Hokage could. "So the kid. What's he like?" questioned the Hokage's companion, where said old man stared out through the corners of his eyes at the person. "He's a lot like you in many ways. Though he's mistrusting of strangers and people in general. With good reason. Though all he really wants is the things everyone else has, and to be free and inhibited. Though recently resent has been building up inside him, especially resentment towards me. He feels I'm incapable of punishing those who wrong him. He believes that there will be no one he can truly trust. This mindset isn't healthy, especially for a young boy such as him, where they are easily impressionable. What he needs isn't a grandfather looking over his shoulder. Rather, what he needs is a kindred spirit to whom he can connect to. While he claims he's better off living alone, what he hates most is solitude. Spoke the Hokage, to which his companion merely sadly gazed at the ground. Well, in more crude terms, I'm hoping you can knock some sense into him. The party of two then arrived at the Jinchuriki's apartment, where the older of the two knocked on the door a couple of times. Naruto, it's the Hokage, would you please open up? There's someone I want you to meet, said Hiruzen, but he received no answer as he grasped the door handle and slowly slipped it open. He was greeted to a sight of an empty apartment aside from paper and seals all over the walls and floor and empty ramen cups and chopsticks. The Hokage sighed at the sight. Clearly the boy wasn't home and was off doing his own thing. So he's not here. No, but he will turn up. He's just looking for his chance to soar. Just follow the shouting, said Hiruzen as he walked out the door with his companion following after him. Sometimes, when a bird trapped in a cage, forever locked within a prison, waits long enough, they will find the chance to set their spirit free and soar like their mighty ancestors. For one bird, or maybe a fox, or perhaps a wolf, or whatever you wanted to call him, was setting himself free of the cage around him and allowing his own nature to soar? High in the sky, with no eyes watching him, judging him? No bars holding him back or pulling him down. The sky was the truest form of freedom in the world. And for Naruto Uzumaki, there was no greater experience. Gliding across tree and stone, plateau and forest, Naruto was merely enjoying his newest invention, one not conceived by any mind in the world. He was riding upon a literal cloud. Or rather, you would call it a disc. Underneath the disc, large enough to fit two people, were buffeting winds constantly holding up the disc. It was a somewhat decorative piece of art, with 3 swirling wind imprints in the middle, with a cyan glowing outer ring with 8 glowing gems with black sigils upon them and more imprints of wind surrounding the disc. Higher, thought the blonde as the disc ascended into the air, climbing through the sky like a ladder. Higher, chanted Naruto, going even further, where he breached the clouds, absorbing the rays of the sun. Looking back down, the entire village, the entire world felt like a small speck from his height. But this did little to hamper his excitement as he continued to climb through the sky. Just as he reached the peak of the disc's ability, the jolting wind carrying the disc dispersed where the Kyuubi Jinchuriki spread out his arms and allowed himself to fall back down to the earth. Closing his sapphire eyes as the disc and his body spun around in the air, vertically, horizontally and all manner of motion. Air and wind riding past him and the disc, smacking against his face as he quite literally surfed the air. He pivoted his body where his head was facing the ground as he spun around like a spinning top. Just as he was about to hit the ground, most likely killing himself, he activated his flying disc once more, where he raced through the streets of Konoha, screaming in utter fun. The people on such streets had to duck for cover lest they be toppled over from the sheer speed of the flying disc. Said disc weaved through the masses of people and buildings, with Naruto having as much fun as any 9-year-old child could. Ascending just a little, the blonde had the disc grind across the railings and building sides, sparks flying as he did so. He then neared the end of the street, with the only opening being a tight narrow gap in between 2 buildings that could barely fit a person. Most people would be frightened by such a thing. But not the sapphire-eyed boy, where he merely grinned as he kicked the flying disc where it was soaring upon its side, and said boy was standing on the rim of the disc, the winds underneath no longer supporting it. And in a matter of a few seconds, the boy and his invention ducked into the small gap, where it was such a tight squeeze that the disc hit its side slightly, while Naruto strained himself not to grind against the hard bricks of the building. And as soon as he exited the gap, he returned the disc to its previous state, screaming and woohooing as the rush of adrenaline was coursing through him. Yeah, nothing could ruin this moment for him. Except now, where he crashed into a cabbage stand, completely and utterly destroying the stand and its cabbages. No, not my cabbages, yelled the owner as he fell to his knees and cried manly tears, to which a dust cloud had formed in the wake of the destruction of his cabbages. And out from the dust came Naruto, pumping his arms in the air, completely excited about what he had created. All right. I knew adding that protection seal to the Tsubasa was a smart idea, though I'm going to have to work on the brakes, said the boy as he pulled out the large disc, the size of a tall man, out of the cloud where it was currently deactivated and useless. All the while the people on the streets were glaring at him in utter hatred. He didn't notice the stairs, and he didn't care for them either, they weren't going anywhere. All that mattered was that Tsubasa, his newest invention. And one thing he didn't notice was the rock flying through the air and smashing against his forehead, above his right eye. Soon trickles of blood leaked from an open wound as he held his hand against the wound, inspecting the blood and flinching in pain. This always happened, someone had some excuse, some reason why they did these things to him. Activating the Kimuri once more, the blonde hopped on, and sat down on the disc where it began floating away back to his apartment. However, he didn't get far as the hovering disc was kicked away from him, where the blonde landed on the ground and groaned in mild pain. "What's the big idea, buddy?" yelled Naruto to the man who so rudely separated him from his masterpiece. "You little pest. You almost got someone killed," yelled the man as he had a bushy mustache as he placed his hands on his hips. "Well, he isn't dead. So I don't see the problem," yelled back Naruto, where the veins upon the man's forehead tightened and he lifted Naruto up by the shirt. "You should have learned your place a long time ago," rebuked the man, but he was stopped from speaking further when 4 black ropes with silver blades upon their edges were aimed at the man's back and were sprouting from Naruto's own. The blonde took it a step further by positioning his hand towards the man's stomach, where a long blade was sprouting from his hand and on the blade were small golden balls. "Just try it. I dare you," warned Naruto as his eyes seemingly became red and his glare tightened upon the man, who sweated a little at the danger surrounding him. The man then let go of him, as Anbu arrived at the scene where they detained both the man and Naruto. "Great." At the Hokage's office. Said man was tending to the unending amount of paperwork upon his desk while his companion was sitting in the corner. "So, is the kid doing all right? He's had some rough spots throughout the year, but he seems to be accepting his position and trying to make a difference, albeit begrudgingly. But I do think he's starting to turn a corner," spoke Hiruzen just as his door was roughly forced open, where 2 of his Anbu agents, holding a yellow-haired boy between and sulking by the way, their bodies stern and unmoving. The Hokage merely nursed the incoming headache at the picture. "Wrong turn. Yo, hey Gigi. Look, there's been this mix-up, as I'm not the Naruto Uzumaki these Anbu agents are looking for. So I'll just go get my stuff and get out of your hair," said Naruto, shrugging off the Anbu's hand to no avail as the agent recaptured his shoulder and stopped him from getting away. "Hokage-sama, we apprehended Naruto Uzumaki under the crimes and violations of property damage, exposed danger to civilians, flying, and the unnecessary destruction of cabbages and threatening innocents, as well as testing possible dangerous seals without supervision," spoke the Anbu. "Yeah, sure, he was innocent," drawled Naruto sarcastically, earning a glare from the Hokage which did nothing to intimidate him. "Don't worry, Hokage-sama, we see this one's type all the time. Wrong choices, dead-enders, useless, no future, a simple loser," said the Anbu, to which Naruto glared at them before said agents disappeared. "Naruto, I am at the end of my patience. For once, can you stay out of trouble? The only who doesn't benefit from this situation is you. Can't you just make simple fuinjutsu rather than ones that might blow up the entire village? You have potential and a bright future, but you're squandering that future on things that don't matter, like that disc of yours. I know you have great ideas, but sometimes those ideas are put to the wrong use. You're a fuinjutsu genius, so, please, just make simple ones from now on. So just please think about your future." The blonde didn't say anything other than slowly walking out the door, back to his apartment. "Naruto, look at me. I am the Hokage. It's hard enough watching over a village, while you are off doing your own thing, creating chaos wherever you go. It's no big deal. No one was hurt and people are always looking for an excuse to put me down," spoke Naruto, to which Hiruzen remained stone-faced, and kept staring at the blonde. "You know what? Forget it. Why do I go out of the way, creating wondrous things if no one even gives them a chance? You're the one who inspired me that if I can do good, why not make it great? My seals can save lives, and yet no one cares, other than the seal was made by me. Naruto, I just don't want to see you throw your life away, with your nose stuck in those seals. I don't want your future to be the same as it is now," said Hiruzen, but with those words Naruto took his leave and went back to his apartment, but making sure to get that Tsubasa from the Anbu. "What future? questioned the blonde as he saw himself out. If he stayed in the village, then he would always be in the exact same situation in the exact same place. If he stays in the village, his life will never take off. I can see why you need me, spoke the Hokage's companion, where Hiruzen buried his hands in his face. He had no idea what to do with that young boy. He doesn't care if he's remembered, he just cares if he helped, just a little at a time. If anyone can hammer sense into him, it would be you. Can I trust you to do this, Enko? Said Hiruzen, to which the purple-haired woman nodded at the Hokage sadly. She knew about the trouble surrounding the young Jinchuriki. And she was one of the few who actually gave a damn about him. Naruto arrived home at his apartment, where he rolled his floating disc into one of his closets, where he would have to tweak some of the seals on the literal flying object. Naruto-sama. You have returned. Shall I brew some green tea at your leisure? Spoke a voice, where Naruto turned his head to view the source of the voice. They were around the height of a young woman, with gray hair that reached their shoulders. Pupilless white eyes with black sclera and covered in head to toe with brown rags, and a simple purple belt. However, their skin was wooden and brown, and when they moved it creaked well. Like wood. Yeah, please do, Ko. Can you also bring me the notes on the Zencho? I want to look over them. See if I've made any miscalculations. Spoke Naruto as he sat down by his desk and looked over pieces of paper from his ceiling. Naruto-sama, I have a question. Spoke Ko, to which Naruto waved his hand signaling that she could continue. When I was accompanying you through the village, I noticed behavior from the citizens that didn't match my data. I recorded them, glaring at you with what is presumed to be animosity. According to my seal, humans should not react in such a way unless provoked, or a traumatic event happened in their life to create such animosity. I found no such evidence of you giving them any logic to treat you in such a way. My question is, why? Queried Ko, to which Naruto stared up at her. Every creature in this world fears that which can hurt them. Similar to how you carry my memories and thoughts. You know how I would react to a situation. I carry something within me that the people of this village are powerless against, thus they naturally fear me, and the great beast within me took much from them. Answered Naruto, to which Ko tilted her head slightly in realization. I am impressed with your continued existence, Naruto-sama. The probability of surviving as long as you have is low for someone with your circumstances. The most preferred escape route for someone in your situation is to take one's own life, preventing others from taking it themselves. Spoke Ko, making Naruto's eyes widen horrifically at his puppet, who stood there expressionless. Thank you. You are welcome. I also have other questions, though I can detect that you are unwilling to answer them. Therefore I shall wait until another time when your behavioral patterns are more beneficial to my questions. Spoke Ko as she handed Naruto a cup of green tea towards the blonde, who sipped at it, savoring the taste. Ko. Said Naruto, garnering the puppet's attention, to which the wooden body turned towards its master. If I die young, bury me outside in a field of flowers. Please. I see. You wish to have your body provide nutrients towards the plants, allowing them to grow stronger and flourish. Very well. I will do so. Said Ko, nodding at their master, to which Naruto sighed. That wasn't quite the reason. He wanted to be buried in a field of flowers because they would give him some form of comfort in his last moments. So what you doin'? Said a voice, where Naruto turned his head to see a woman right behind him, looking through some of his stuff, more specifically his seals. She had light brown, pupil-less eyes with violet hair styled into a short, spiky, fan ponytail. She was wearing a tan overcoat and wearing a mesh bodysuit that stretched from her neck to her thighs, and a dark orange mini skirt. A pendant that looked like a snake fang around her neck, and gray shin guards. She was currently eating some dango while looking over Naruto's seals as multiple tick marks appeared on his head. The boy then swatted the paper out of her hands. Okay, who are you? And how'd you get in here? Questioned Naruto madly, his temper overflowing through his body. It's called the front door, I'm sure you have one. Spoke Enko as she settled herself on Naruto's bed, where the blonde fumed some more at her aloofness. That's it. Ko. Kick her out. Yelled Naruto to the puppet, where it craned its head towards its master, who stared at her blankly. No. I didn't program you to be disobedient. I am able to detect that this woman means no harm to you. I don't care. She's being annoying," bellowed Naruto as he grew red in the face at all the annoyances harassing him. "Look, kid. The old man put me in charge of you. He doesn't want you to blow up the village, so that's why I'm here. But hey, think of this as training. You'll be constantly surrounded by a beautiful woman with such a killer figure that you'll learn not to give in to your impulses," said Enko bluntly and bending down slightly to give Naruto just a peek, to which he blushed a little at her attempts. "So basically, Gigi sent me a whore," said Naruto, crossing his arms, not feeling the malevolent feeling of dread wash over him as before he knew it, he found a fist pounding him into the ground. "God, I don't dress this way for your amusement. Enko Mitarashi, your new handler and friend," said Enko, but only realized that Naruto was still possibly knocked out on the ground. "Well, anyway, the old man's given you the important duty of completing D-rank missions as punishment for that whole debacle with that flying machine you created. Let's go," said Enko, dragging Naruto out of his apartment where Ko was still standing, not understanding the situation. "Make sure to pick up every cabbage," yelled the owner of the cabbage cart, which Naruto had destroyed with his impromptu landing strategy. "Whatever. They're just cabbages," spoke Naruto, where he went back to his job, grumbling that he couldn't bring Ko along, otherwise this entire chore would have gone a lot faster. Enko meanwhile wasn't too far away, chewing on some dango while watching her ward from a safe distance. It's that kid. Guess that's the only thing he's actually good at," spoke a villager watching Naruto from his point of view. Enko meanwhile was able to hear what he said, but ignored it for the most part. "Hokage-sama should have more consideration for us. I mean, he's a bomb ready to go off," said another villager while Enko gripped her fist in slight anger at their words. "It should just leave and never come back. That thing is better off dead." Just then Naruto turned around in anger. "I'm not it. Or perhaps would you prefer if I kill you right here and now?" yelled Naruto, where his eyes went red and his hair became slightly more manic, and 4 large black rope with silver blades burst from his back, scaring everyone on the street. Even Enko had to widen her eyes at the sight of the weapons in front of her. Before she knew it, the ropes detracted once again into Naruto's back before he raced off somewhere. "See, I keep telling you he's dangerous." With that said, Enko raced off after Naruto, which wasn't too hard as he was barely an academy student and lacked the speed to outrun a shinobi. She followed him across the village, and once she had tracked him down, she found him sitting atop the Shodaime Hokage's head, knees drawn up to his chest. "That was uncalled for, kid," spoke Enko while Naruto merely narrowed his eyes across the horizon, watching the setting sun. "I wouldn't kill her, it was just a scare tactic. That's all. But still, try that again and something bad will bite you in the ass," spoke Enko as she came closer to Naruto, who just remained solemn, continuing to stare out across the village that despised him. "Why do good deeds or help others if no one appreciates it? There's no point. They don't believe that there is one good thing inside of me," said Naruto, causing Enko's entire form to become downcast at his words. "If I was to leave the village right now, one would stop me. But where would I go? I have no family, no friends. My own clan was destroyed when Uzashogakure was destroyed, and the elders won't allow me access to the Uzumaki Shrine or estate here in the village. I've never had a real home, at least one that can't be destroyed easily. Hell, what do I know? I just keep running, hiding till they find me when the villagers are really drunk or high on whatever shit they got a hold of. But what would that do? They always find me. If they could only know what I knew. What would it prove? That I'm smarter than them, they would judge me as too dangerous, and attack me anyway. What do I have that they don't? Simple answer." Enko sighed sadly, her eyes conveying the sorrow she held from hearing those words. "Just meet me here tomorrow morning. You still have work to do," spoke Enko, where she left the young man to stew on the mountain. She contemplated how hard it would be from here on out. The very next day, Naruto showed up and found Enko chewing on some dango, as if it was the holiest object in the world. Naruto's job for the day was to clean up some graffiti that young punks had painted across the town. With Enko watching him as usual, he had to wash away the clear acts of rebellion while his handler did her own thing. "You know this would go a lot for faster as you helped. Or I don't know, some motivational quote. Hell, even a motivational insult would be kind of good right now," said Naruto as he scrubbed away zealously while Enko laughed a little. "And where's the fun in that, besides? You have to do this over and over and over again until the Sandime decides that you've done enough," spoke Enko, watching from afar, spreading out her arms and stretching her back. "Yeah, this is just his way of saying that I don't truly matter other than being the village garbage man," spoke Naruto, a scowl spreading across his features. "But I'm still here," said the boy as he got back to work while Enko raised her eyebrows at him, just a little. A month had passed and Naruto and Enko had undeniably grown closer. One could say that they had a brother-sister sort of relationship, just from their small talks. What Naruto viewed as a chore could now be called creating a memory. They would joke with the other, buy each other food, dango and ramen, and just talk. Naruto at first, after doing the D-rank missions, chores, would wander off and do his own thing, leaving Enko in the dust, but she would always pick herself up and track him down, like a tail trailing behind an animal. The boy had even stood up to the Jonin, sometimes refusing to do the work, which always ended up with a fist to the head. The woman had theorized this as simply his independence. But all the evidence pointed to the fact that he grew up alone and thus desired to be alone. If he got his work done faster, then the sooner he could leave and create more seals. She would even find him staring into the sky for no good reason, not caring if anyone was watching him. He would even kill himself from determination to finish the job, one time even falling asleep, and Enko finding everything neat and tidy. She did him the favor of throwing her coat over him to keep him warm. Their relationship had grown so close when Naruto allowed Enko to fly with him on the Kamuri through the clouds. However, things now took a recent turn. Naruto had created his ultimate masterpiece, with some help from Ko. He had figured out a way to use sealing to heal the sick and burn away wounds. An ingenious device he called the Zencho, made of 5 seals working tandem together to form a new and entirely unseen effect. Today was the day Naruto would showcase the power of the Zencho to those willing to see it, mainly the Hokage, elders of Konoha and the council, who he wished weren't coming. Now as he stood there in front of all the judging eyes aside from Hiruzans and Danzos who were watching with anticipation. "Tell us. Thing. What is this so-called Zencho supposed to do?" spoke one of the civilian council members, snidely and with contempt, while Naruto simply glared at him and took his insult like a grain of salt. "After weeks of research and constant testing, I have found a way to reverse wounds as if they never existed," spoke Naruto, and out of the corner, he could see Enko silently cheering him on. "By taking 5 seals, working simultaneously at the same time, did I produce this effect? The Zencho is the sum of all things," said Naruto as he ducked his hand into his shirt and pulled out a small blue ball, barely the size of a fingernail. "This is the key to the Zencho, an object called the Maber. With it I will be able to fully control all 5 seals at once. However, it takes a mind of concentration and focus to properly use it, so therefore, this should only be attempted by individuals with experience," said Naruto as he held the blue orb towards the Zencho where it glowed just a little brighter. He then brought out a kunai and made a large cut on his arm where he bled a little as the blood trickled down his arm. Falling into a pure state of focus and concentration was his eyes entirely turned crystal blue and his whiskers marks on his cheeks were flashing blue. And as fast and quick as lightning, if one were to blink, they would surely miss it as blue lightning surged towards Naruto's arm and utterly healed his wound, not even a mark remained. Many in the room were entranced by such a thing, especially a bandaged old badger kept a steely face, but held back his excitement. However, one of pair of eyes was not impressed with the show and stood up, making his way over towards Naruto. A civilian council member quickly and dangerously pushed Naruto away and grabbed the Maber from his hand. "This is a farce. Nothing more than a trick of the eyes. How can we trust Minus?" "No, don't," yelled Naruto, but it was far too late as the man holding the Maber was of weak will and unable to control all the raging seals at once. The violent energies of the Zencho struck the council member. Blue lightning surging everywhere and striking the man across his body. No one was able to do anything. The only thing they could do was watch as the civilian council member suddenly fell to the ground, his eyes completely burned in his sockets. Naruto cautiously approached the man as he held his hand against his forehead. It was gone. No, it was destroyed. This man's chakra was destroyed. He's dead, said Naruto as he stared down at his hand, believing himself to be some monster. He looked up to see the other council members staring at him in nothing but fear and horror. Even the Hokage was shocked at what he saw. While Danzo smirked for just a second at the possibilities of the Uzumaki's invention. Unable to endure the many eyes upon him, Naruto ran out of the room into the rain outside of the Hokage mansion. Anko, watching his retreating form, raced after him. She found him in the exact same spot as usual, atop the Shodaime Hokage's head. In the exact same position she found him in a month ago. She then sat beside him, coiling an arm around his shoulders, to which he didn't rebuke or shrug off. It wasn't your fault. It was all an accident, who knows what would have happened. Sulking about it won't change a thing. Not caring to listen to her words, Anko was interrupted when Naruto stood up, combing his hands through his wet hair, dampened from the rain. Look. Don't you get it? I fucked up. I tried to make something great. Something to be proud of. And it was all for nothing. Maybe I could do something right. Forget it. Just forget it, said Naruto as he slumped back down to the ground. But his older sister figure wouldn't take that as an answer. Only true shinobi could endure hardship no matter what. Now you listen to me, Naruto Uzumaki. You have the potential to be everything you want to be in you. But as soon as something goes wrong, you tuck tail and run. You have to endure no matter the pain and carve out your own path. Find an ideal you can live by and follow it to the very end, no matter what people say. And when the time comes to test out everything you have learned, I hope I'll be there, basking in the light of the sun, when you stand there. As Hokage, said Anko, striking something within Naruto as he turned to stare at her. He dried away his tears and hugged Anko as if he was never going to let go, surprising the woman with his gesture. It's all right, Naruto. Everything is going to be all right. So long as I'm around, I won't leave you, said Anko as she hugged Naruto back, where they sat there for 5 whole minutes, brother and sister conveying their emotions to the other. We all go through times when we feel like giving up, where we believe that we have nothing left to lose. It's where we lean on another's shoulders can we be saved from the pit of darkness we created. You made something truly spectacular. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. With that said, Anko got up and left, believing that Naruto wanted to be alone for now, to think about what happened. It was only after she left that Shadow started to move. Sensing the disturbance, Naruto readied himself, but only a moment too late. A small dart stung his neck, where he removed it, inspecting its mate before his eyes became heavy and he soon lost consciousness. When he woke up, his eyes were heavy and he was lying on something hard and wet. Picking himself up and dusting himself off, he inspected his surroundings. It was dark, as darkness itself is. No light was seen or was visible. He wondered as to where he was, but found himself coming to no conclusion. Just then the sound of an opening door was heard, where he turned around to view it. A single man, standing in the doorway. The blonde, desperate and afraid, ran towards the door screaming for help, but found that it closed on him, trapped in the darkness. Anko. He screamed at the top of his lungs for his guardian, but found no response as he fell to his knees. Flashback end. A single eye flashed open. That moment of reliving the memory jolted him awake. He scanned his eyes across his surroundings, but found darkness, just darkness. He could feel the fabric around his eyes, effectively stopping him from seeing the world around him. Lifting himself up in a sitting position, the blonde with his left hand traced along the edges of the cloth and pulling on some to reveal his single sapphire eye, his right eye. Now having a greater view of his atmosphere. A simple hospital room, so bland and white that it almost gave him the urge to vomit. He was alone, no one by his side. He was alone. Looking to his right, he found the gnarled stump on his shoulder, the remnants of his right arm. He then heard the creaking sound of his door opening, where the person he actually wanted to see most walked in. Conan, whispered a voice. Naruto, where Conan was startled by the new voice as she grasped the appearance of the broken man sitting up in his own bed. I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm happy that you're all right, spoke Naruto, where he was soon engulfed in a hug by the blue-haired woman, who cried into his shoulder. He wrapped his remaining arm around her petite frame, taking in some of her warmth. You damn idiot, don't you ever think You could have died, said Conan as she tightened her hug around the blonde. I think too much. It leaves gaps in my mind. All I could think about was your safety, replied Naruto as he pried himself from Conan's arms where said woman locked eyes with him. This is a painful reminder. Obito is far stronger than I believed. He intends to finish me off at our destined battle. I have to get stronger, spoke Naruto just as he tried to push himself out of the bed where he fell to the ground like a sack, his right leg refusing to move. Conan ran around the bed and helped him back into the soft surface. You're in no condition to move. Those wounds of yours just closed in here, you are trying to open them up again. That's just like you, said Conan as she eased him into the bed where he silently protested to her words. You've been resting for a week, and you need more rest to heal your wounds. How much damage did I suffer? Queried the blonde where Conan bit her lip in slight hesitation. The intense light of the flames damaged your left eye, maybe your cornea, I'm not too sure. The gash across your stomach almost spilled your internal organs and certainly damaged your lower torso. You clearly lost your right arm. And when the Tonbaguri was broken, shards were embedded into your right leg, shredding your muscles and effectively stopping you from walking on your right leg. Kuroko and I decided it was best to leave the shards in there and remove them when we were ready, spoke Conan while Naruto nodded at her as he covered his left eye with his remaining arm. He then felt something being placed on his lap, a bundle of cloth where he unfurled to reveal the hilt of the Tonbaguri. That's all that remains of the sword. Naruto merely stared at the broken metal, a thoughtful expression on his features. Why did it break? Questioned the blonde. Why did I break? He tried to activate his special healing mode but found that to no avail, that no white mist was spreading across his body healing his wounds. You can't heal yourself, stated Conan where Naruto nodded at her in confirmation. Kuroko and I discovered that it was actually a seal, healing your wounds, exciting your life force to heal your injuries. We had to deactivate it to properly treat you. Oshie no Shudoin, teachings of the monastery, is a seal, not some innate ability, questioned Naruto as Conan nodded at him. So I assume you have some plan to give me back my right arm? Kuroko had exclaimed that he knew of a correct donor, saying that he would be taking samples from that. No clue what H meant, said Conan while Naruto widened his eyes, meaning that his latest project had come to fruition, that it had finally reached maturity and was able to be useful at long last. It was difficult cultivating such a project, but like a flower, it only required time and patience. Conan, I would like for you stay with me for just a while, spoke the blonde while breaking eye contact with Conan and lying down in his bed. The blue-haired woman nodded at him as she brought a chair over and watched as the Uzumaki faded into a blissful sleep. If only such a thing were possible for him now. He would be forced to relive the most torturous moments of his life. Flashback. You like the demon, you coddle him, Hokage-sama, spoke a civilian council member to the Hokage, who waved him off and his excuses to get rid of Naruto. After the whole calamity with the Zencho, fear has rightfully taken his place. He could have been planning to kill us whole in that show of his. We should use that fear to take control of the people, warn them against his threat. Naruto is an asset to Konoha that we simply cannot lose. What happened was an accident and you'd best leave it at that, warned the Hokage, but the councilman wouldn't back down from his words. You oppose every effort to punish the demon for his crimes while allowing to roam free as a danger. His reign of chaos is seeping its way into our hearts. Return to your home, this farce of yours ends here. I will not continue this discussion with a delusional fool, said Hiruzen, turning around sharply to face the councilman. There are some who disagree with the choices you made. Hokage-sama, you hide behind your own cloak as soon as trouble arises. Or do you fear what we have to say? I fear nothing. And I can speak for myself regarding my own thoughts. And my only interest has and always will be the stability of Konoha and the will of fire, passed down from one Hokage to the next. And what are you trying to do here, cause an uprising? Do you wish for blood that much? Questioned the Hokage while the man didn't back down from his words. The people of the village must know what is happening. And what They tear down the Hokage monument with fire and weapons. Would that be better? It cannot be worse. Your stubbornness and refusal to listen to reason leaves me no choice. Rebuked the man, to which Hiruzen narrowed his eyes dangerously. What, I refuse to listen to his excuses and bigotry. Maybe you're too ill-fit to your position if you cannot understand even this, replied Hiruzen, surprising the man at his words. Leave, before I have my Ambu escort you back to your premises, ordered Hiruzen gruffly, where said council member turned on heel and left. Hiruzen slinked his way back into his office, where he massaged the growing migraine. For once he would like to go through one day where he wouldn't have to deal with such bullshit. Just as he sat down, Enko walked through the door, a worried expression on her face. Hokage-sama. Have you seen Naruto? It's been 2 weeks since that incident with the Zencho and I haven't seen him at his home or around the village. Spoke Enko while Hiruzen shrugged off her worry. It wasn't uncharacteristic of Naruto to take leaves of absence. I'm sure he's fine. He's a resourceful and clever as a fox. He'll turn up, he needs his space, that's all, spoke the Hokage while Enko had doubts. Elsewhere, in a dark and damp place with no light, acute grunting echoing through the darkness, the sound of nails grinding against the ground, the gritting of teeth and silent screams. A body emaciated beyond recognition, shaggy hair that reached shoulders. His hunger was far too great, constantly scraping his nails against the ground until they were bloodied and stinging in uproar. Trails of the blood from his fingers and toes were scattered throughout the room. Desperate attempts to claw his way out to freedom. He couldn't use his chakra. Whoever locked him in were smart enough to strip him of his power. He could feel himself slowly going insane. A constant ringing in his ears, an itch at the back of his mind. He couldn't take it anymore. He had to get out. No food, no water. He could feel his stomach burning, screaming from within. His throat was parched and was more like sandpaper. His body felt heavy, weighted in a way. Tears streaming down his eyes, he pushed himself up and rammed headfirst against the hard metal door, barring him from the outside world. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out, yelled Naruto again and again as he beat his bloody fists against the metal door, practically trying to force them open with his near-broken fingers. I didn't do anything, said the boy as he slumped to the ground, defeated and broken. Tears continued to fall as his stomach roared in starvation. He was like a caged animal, able to see freedom, but never grasping it. The single door taunted him, showing just how weak he was. Gashes and cuts were spread over his fingers, and he had lost a nail or two. Whoever came up with this idea was a truly depraved individual with little to no humanity. They were nothing more than a psychopath, actively looking for violence. His body was gripping as if someone had a hand on his spine, clenching his limbs and breaking them apart. They threw him in this basement and forgot about him, or simply ignored him. Whichever one it was slowly killing him, a painful death. He was almost at the point that he was practically begging for death, dying in the dark. Tears continuing to fall, he scanned his eyes across the dark room, wondering just what he had to deserve any of this. He may be a Jinchuriki, but he and the fox were two separate entities that share the same body. Where's Enko? Whispered Naruto, his dry throat making it difficult to speak. 2 weeks had passed, and he found no way out. He wanted death, demanded it so much that it was all he was thinking about. He found himself chanting, "Kill me," again and again, like a song stuck on replay. If one were to look at him, they would barely see his mouth moving. It actually didn't appear that he was breathing. He was so weak, so emaciated that one could even see his bones through his skin. His hair, from great golden locks like the sun, had become parched, near bleached in fact. His stomach and body twisted and contorted, racking with pain in each second. But one thing that was certain was the tears still streaming down his eyes. He had enough. He just had enough. A wolf has many teeth, but it felt like his were broken long ago. He could barely stay awake, his eyes losing the blue and taking on a murky color. Just to stay sane, to stay alive. He counted just how many droplets of water he could hear, dripping constantly from above, leaking through the roof and sides. 4,783. 4,784. Kill me. 4,785. 4,786. Kill me. Like a clock. His fingers were bloody where said blood had dried and become black. He wondered slightly if anyone was looking for him, though he doubted that greatly if he was still down here. That itch in the back of his mind had become loud chanting, telling him to do awful things. The ringing in his ears were more akin to that of a bell, banging loudly. This torture, this brutality had broken him. He screamed in abject pain, choking on his own dry throat. His whole world then became blank and gray, with large white holes sucking in the gray. He had no idea where he was, but it wasn't like he cared either way. Guess he figured that it was his inner mind. This is the way of life they chose for me. This is the future they chose for me, thought Naruto as he screamed, falling onto his knees. If my parents really loved me, they wouldn't have sacrificed me for a village not even worth saving. They're both weak. Father. Mother. Why? Why did you both leave me alone? I hate you both. I hate being alone. Why didn't you choose me? Why didn't you both live for me? The words of corpses mean nothing. Even if you forsook the village, you should have chosen me. I don't care if people died. I don't care what happens to them. I feel nothing for them, screamed Naruto, internally crying out to his deceased parents. And within his little world, red flowers appeared, as beautiful as the morning sun, but red as blood, and little by little some of the flowers were wilting and dying, becoming gray. You must sacrifice one thing to preserve the other. You both couldn't do that, you couldn't choose. That wasn't kindness or bravery, it's because you were both weak. You both don't have strength or resolve. You weren't true shinobi. I am a warlord. Don't worry, from here on out, I'll be here to protect you, spoke another voice, where Naruto looked up to see another version of himself, only with shaggier hair, more wild whiskers and red eyes. Just leave everything to me. I won't leave you. Ever, said the other Naruto, where all the flowers died around them. Outside the very same door, a young girl, holding a teddy bear in her arms, inspected it with a curious, innocent gaze. Daddy says not to go in there. But he never says why, said the small girl as she took hold of the doorknob and twisted, noting that it could only be opened from one side, since the other side was noticeably lacking a doorknob itself. When she opened up the door, she was immediately beset with a dark void. She wasn't able to contemplate further when red eyes snapped open in the darkness, and 3 black ropes with silver blades attached flew from the darkness and impaled her in the stomach, lifting her up in the air, making her blood fly all around, and causing her to scream in pain before she was slammed to the ground. The teddy bear she was holding was drenched in blood, a cruel symbol of how easily innocence was destroyed. A thin and wispy shadow then rose from the darkness. His eyes were red and his teeth were bared. Naruto slowly walked over the corpse of the young girl, not caring for her in the slightest. From hearing the noise, the mother of the girl ran down from her stairs and stared in horror and grief at the Jinchuriki standing over her child's corpse, as if he walked through a field of corpses and remaining unperturbed. The mother, reacting in such a natural way, rushed at Naruto, who had been taken over by his second personality, the thing known as Hanano, instinct. The emaciated and skeletal boy disappeared in a flurry and quickly appeared behind the woman, where deep cuts into her entire body, including her face, appeared and blood exploded from her wounds. Blood like water, sweet and warm. Nails biting, chewing, bleeding on ground. Died in the dark, make others hurt, said Naruto as he held his head in his hands. He was unable to say anything else when Anbu soldiers descended through the hard wooden roof and slammed seals on the ground to restrain Naruto's movements. Hokage-sama, we found him. A civilian was holding him in his underground basement. I'm sorry, we couldn't save the family in time, said the Anbu captain, radioing his Hokage, who sighed sadly. Hiruzen was outside of the house with the man responsible for Naruto's torture being held to the ground by Anbu. By his side was Inoichi Yamanaka, Ibiki Marino and Enko Mitarashi. There was nothing we could do in the end, spoke the Hoki, saddened by recent events. He then received more information about Naruto's current state of mind, babbling about how he was going to kill those who hurt him and savor their blood. A dark and grisly reminder of what happened. Inoichi, Ibiki, what could have happened that drove Naruto to this point? Questioned the old man, where Enko narrowed her eyes in sorrow, knowing she had failed in her duty. Given what happened, and the sheer amount of time he spent in that place, no food or water, I'm surprised he didn't starve to death. It's quite possible his mind was unable to handle the slow death and so created a second personality to protect the dominant one. Spoke Ibiki as he approached the where Naruto was brought out of the house, knocked out and having water being forced down his throat so to keep him alive. This violent new personality is a danger to Naruto himself and those around him. If what the captain says is true, he will regard anyone as a danger and attack out of pure fear and instinct. Like that child and her mother. I'm afraid it will take years of mental rehabilitation to restore Naruto to the way he was, and even then he won't be forgetting this experience. Said Inoichi, backing up Ibiki, who nodded at the man. As for his torturer, Anko, who was listening, had to hold back every urge to kill this man, right in front of her. To do that to a child of all people, and now he has suffered from his choices, but she wondered what the Hokage would do. Said man then turned to the civilian. His glare steely and cold. As Hokage of Konoha, I hereby judge your acts as inhuman. Not only have your decisions cost the life of a young boy, but also your family. Death would be too forgiving. You shall no longer be considered a member of Konoha and are now no longer welcome within its walls. If you do not leave in the next 6 hours, my ambush shall regard you as hostile and eliminate you. Spoke Hiruzen, to which the man fell to his knees and bawled his eyes out, and left with nothing but the clothes on his back, while many on the street watched with horror, for Hokage doing that to an innocent man who had only done the right thing. As for Naruto, Anko, I relieve Naruto of your custody. I do not blame you for what has happened, but given the boy's state of mind, he must hold feelings of betrayal towards you. Instead, I shall have him placed in the care of Inoichi and Ibiki, where they can properly treat High-. However, Hiruzen was silenced from speaking further with the arrival of a new voice. This will only prove to be fruitless in the end. Rather than cure him of this current predicament. Instead, why don't you place him into my care, where instead of suppressing the Hanano, he will channel it. Make it his weapon to use against the enemies of Konoha. My emotional training will be of most root. Place him under my custody, within root, and I assure you, I will make him a weapon to serve the good of Konoha. Spoke Danzo, hobbling over with his cane. Hiruzen stared at Danzo, unsure if he should give in to his friend's demands. He then stared back at the unconscious Naruto and sighed heavily. Very well. Though if under any impression that Naruto proves to still be a danger, I will take the drastic action of sealing away his abilities, memories, and even the Hanano. I expect weekly reports of his well-being. And Danzo, betray this trust and I'll ensure you never become Hokage. Said Hiruzen as Danzo bowed, and took his leave, where he had his root agents pick up Naruto's body and brought him to his base, to be inducted into root. This was the birth of Takurufu, the Iron Wolf. Flashback end. Danzo was walking through his base en route, his mind swirling, and thought about his next move. I received your summons. Tell me, what little game are you playing this time? Said a voice where an elderly man appeared from the shadows. He had long wavy gray hair that reached his shoulders and mutton cups that reached his beard. He had stern yellow eyes and brown brows. He was wearing a black shirt with a white gi with brown and blue edges, and a sleeveless red jacket and simple blue pants. Akihiro Shino. Spoke Danzo as the other man nodded at him. I trust you find the lab to your liking. Very much so, I'll be able to carry out my experiments without constraint. With the samples you collected, I'll be able to begin work shortly. Root agents have a much durable body than those of normal shinobi. Combined with a near unfathomable vitality, they'll be the greatest soldiers in the world. Said Shino, making Danzo smirk at him. I do hope you can supply enough of your men towards my experiments. Still such a shame. Said Akihiro, where he joined Danzo as both walked towards his lab. To think that Naruto would grow up to be such a magnificent individual. You were wise to collect these samples. He was only a test subject at first, and now he has become something more than anyone could have dreamed. Sharingan, Garastan, Rantan, and having mastered all forms of combat. An exceptional specimen indeed. And now you wish to disturb ashes none have touched for so long. Why is that? The weapon the Uzumaki clan have been hoarding lies within Uzushogakuyor. I never had the right blood to access the weapon, but now. Let's just say things are different. Said Danzo as he and Shino entered his lab, clean and shiny, not to mention new of course. They then approached a tank, filled with special liquid perfect for containing special specimens. But first, we just have to create more Narutos, said Danzo as he rubbed his hand across the tank currently containing Naruto's severed right arm, lost during the battle with Obito. Danzo smirked at the severed limb. How long he had been waiting for a trove of that boy's cells. The greatest gift the blonde could give, handed to him on a silver platter. End of chapter 22.